All right, guys, today we're going to talk about analyzing prop bets. Prop bets have become hugely popular, I think, because a lot of people that are getting into sports betting now have more of a daily fantasy or fantasy background, as opposed to when I started betting on sports. There really wasn't a lot of fantasy sports, and there certainly was no daily fantasy sports. So the options around prop betting really weren't plentiful. Props were only really offered during the big events like the Super Bowl, but now on a daily basis, nightly basis, we've got a ton of props to choose from. And because of that, we can really pick off some value plays and become profitable just prop betting. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what a prop bet is, it's nothing more than a proposition within the game. So the outcome of the game is unimportant to the bet, and oftentimes that has to do with a player in the game achieving a certain level of statistic. In a basketball game, we may be looking at total number of rebounds or total number of points. In the NFL, maybe yardage thrown or receiving yardage, rushing yardage, number of touchdowns scored, if they score a touchdown or not, if they make a three-pointer or not, things like that. So there's a ton of props. Anything that you could really imagine up, there will be a prop on it. And certainly in the Super Bowl, we see that magnified by many times. So I want to get into exactly how to analyze these props differently than what I talked about with normal distribution, because these are going to be specific to certain kind of props. But before I do that, guys, please hit that subscribe button, like the video. It helps us out in the algorithm. Also lets me know what kind of videos you guys are into. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is called the Poisson Distribution, and it's how we're going to calculate exactly what the probability is of each event occurring or each of these props occurring. It's how we're going to be able to value whether or not we're getting a good price or not at each book on each one of these propositions. Now, don't get totally turned off and freak out because you weren't a math major or a statistician. If you have Excel, this is a very simple formula, very simple to do and implement onto a spreadsheet. Firstly, when are we going to use this? Why are we using this particular formula? Okay, there's two criteria that I want you to focus on before you go ahead and use Poisson. For one, the variable needs to happen one at a time. So if we're looking at touchdowns scored in a game, those happen one at a time. If we're looking at total points scored in a game, that would not fit this criteria. Again, just like points in a game in basketball, points scored, I would not use Poisson. But if we were talking about free throws made, I would. The second criteria that we need to fill in order to use Poisson is the probability of the event occurring needs to be small, while the number of chances needs to be large. For instance, free throws in a game, there's a limited amount of free throws a player is going to score in a game, but they do have a lot of opportunity during the course of the game to get free throws. Same thing with rebounds or three-pointers. All right, first let's look at a prop today from DraftKings for three-pointers made. The over-under on this prop for Jason Tatum, I'm going to specifically look at Jason Tatum because I like the fact that we've got a fairly large amount of juice on this, so we can play around with it, and it will probably get the point home maybe a little better than something with a little less juice. So Jason Tatum, over 2.5 is minus 177. Under 2.5 plus 138. It's a fairly large spread there. We're talking a 39-cent spread, which you're going to see a lot on these because these wide spreads, that's how the sports book makes their money. So be careful with that. But we're going to take care of that in our analysis and look to see if the price is good or not good on this particular prop. Okay, here's a Poisson spreadsheet. In this instance, we're going to look at Jason Tatum three-point shots made tonight. Now, the first thing you need to do is have a projection. I'm going to use the DFS Army projections here for this exercise. All right, guys, this is from the Sports Bet Army. There's a link down below on how you could get these NBA props that we're posting on a nightly basis. But if you look, we're getting the projections from DFS Army. And if you scroll down here to Jason Tatum, they're in alphabetical order by first name. He's projected for 3.1 three-pointers tonight. All right, so we head back over to this spreadsheet. And for projection, we're going to put in the 3.1 that we got from the DFS Army projections over on the Sports Bet Army website. So right here, I have my 3.1. Now, we're going to be looking at every possible scenario that could happen. So obviously, we can get a 0 threes made, 1 3, 2 threes, so on and so forth. So every possible scenario is going to be listed here. And we're going up to 16, which is highly unlikely. But just to be on the safe side, will list everything from 0 to 16. Now, the important part of this spreadsheet is, of course, the Poisson distribution formula. Now in Excel, they make this super easy. If you just type in the equals Poisson.dist, as you see it written here in my address bar, and then parentheses, the first part of the formula is X. X is the potential outcome for this prop. So 0 would be the first of the potential outcomes of this prop. And of course we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. The second part of this formula is the mean. The mean is going to be whatever our projection is, in this case, 3.1. The third part of the formula is cumulative. We want that at false. If you had this at true, it would calculate the cumulative percentage of all outcomes up to that potential X. As you can see, for a 3.1 projection, there's a 4.5% chance that this player, Jason Tatum in this instance, scores 0 3-pointers. There's a 14% chance he makes exactly one. There is a 21.6% chance he makes exactly 2, and you could read on down the line. Okay, now that we have the Poisson set up and those cells are ready to go, we want to input exactly what the prop was. So on DraftKings, the prop was 2.5. The juice on the under was plus 138. The juice on the over was minus 177. And don't worry about juice exactly. That's going to be for a different calculation. So currently everything in the yellow is what we're really going to be focused on right now, because this prop can either finish over or under. There's no chance of it falling exactly at 2.5. So we move to column C. All the cells in column C are going to look at column A and determine if column A in that row is below the prop. So in this instance, it's looking to cell A3 to see that the 0 is less than what the prop is, and it is. So we want to add that 4.5% into the total combined percentage for potential unders. 1 would also be less than 2.5, so I'm going to have that 14% added into this unders column. 2 is under 2.5, and that as well will be added into the unders column. And then when we get to 3, it's showing a 0 because now 3 is on the over side of this prop. For the overs, we're going to do the same exact thing. If you look at the formula, it's a simple if statement that's looking at column A to see if column A is greater than or less than the prop. As we've noted, 0, of course, is less than the 2.5 prop, as is 1, 2, and then when we get to 3, we're going to have the 22.4% added into the over column, and then, of course, everything greater than that 3 will also be added into the over column. Now in green here, we have the probabilities combined of 0, 1, and 2 for this one, which adds up to 40.1%. And then we're adding up all of the over percentages, and that will equal 59.9%. Now on a prop that is 2.5, a non-integer, we should equal 100% because this prop is going to win or lose. There's no chance of a push. And as you can see here, 59.9% and 40.1% do equal 100%. Underneath that, I have what the book is calculating as the probability. Now I get this number based on the juice. And if you're unfamiliar with how to calculate this number, you can go back to the video I did on money lines. In there, I will show you all the calculations on how to convert a money line into probability and vice versa. So with the juice at plus 138, the book is estimating a 42% chance that this prop goes under. At juice of minus 177, the book is estimating a 63.9% chance of an over. The book, in both instances, has a probability greater than the probability I am showing based on my projections. Therefore, our edge is negative. So for the under, we have a negative 4.5% edge, and on the over, it is negative 6.3%. Therefore, neither one of these bets is worth playing. I also set up a calculation for what our line would be. Now, a fair line is always going to be equal with no spread. What I mean by that is, you'll see here, we've got plus 149 on the under and minus 149 on the over. The over is a favorite here to hit because our projection is 3.1 with a prop of 2.5. But because we're not taking a spread in our world, we're looking for a fair line. there's no spread there. And by spread, I mean just like the juice on the over at DraftKings is minus 177, the spread down to plus 138 is 39 cents. Here, our spread is 0 because the probability of the over is minus 149, and then the probability that we should be getting paid at least on the under is a plus 149. Okay, I want to look at a couple other examples on how we can use the spreadsheet and do some calculations to figure out if we're getting any value. I'm now going to look at what FanDuel is offering on Jason Tatum to make three-pointers tonight. There are several different props for how many threes Tatum will make tonight, but let's just look at 3 of them. Firstly, let's look at 2+ made threes. Tatum is minus 750. How could we possibly figure out if minus 750 is a good price? Well, we could look at the spreadsheet and then add in all the pertinent information. Our projection is not going to change. We still think he's going to make 3.1 three-pointers on average tonight. But the prop is going to change. In order for this prop to be successful, it is specifically saying he needs to make 2 or more three-pointers. That would be the equivalent of listing this as 1.5. We're not going to be looking at unders because on this particular prop, only the over matters. There is no under bet. So you're strictly betting whether or not you think Jason Tatum will hit 2 or more three-pointers tonight. Now the juice on that over, we're going to change to minus 750. So the only column that really means anything to us now is this over column. Our probability of an over hitting, and the over in this case being over 1.5 or 2 or more, is 81.5%. The book is estimating it at 88.2%. So the edge, of course, is with the book here, minus 7.6%. We do not want to take this bet. Perhaps we'll get a better price at 3+ made threes. But we see that price is at minus 190. You should now know in your head that's the same exact bet DraftKings was offering us, at least on the over side. Because in order for 3+ made threes to hit, that is the same as a 2.5 threes over under. So we know that minus 177 was not a fair line. So minus 190 is certainly not going to be good at all. If we do the calculation, we see 2.5 on the prop, the juice of minus 190. The book is giving us a probability of 65.5%. That gives us a negative 8.6% edge, which obviously is not in our favor and a bet that we do not want to make. Well, it's unlikely, but perhaps 4+ made threes with Jason Tatum is good. Now we're getting plus money here. We do think he might make 3.1. We could be thinking, well, there's a good chance if 3.1 is the projection, he could make 4. But let's do it mathematically and see if we do have any edge here. So now we'll go change the prop to 3.5 because the over 3.5 is what we're looking for here. The juice on this bet is 146, plus 146. Now the probability we have is 37.5% that Jason Tatum makes 4 threes or more tonight. The book is estimating 40.7% chance of 3.5 or more or 4 or more three-pointers from Tatum tonight. Again, a minus 7.7% edge. Most of the props are not going to be on even integers because they want an outcome. They want either a win or a loss. But you will run into instances where you need to know exact. Take the Super Bowl, for instance. There may be a number on exactly 2 interceptions or exactly 2 field goals made in the game, something like that. So if you want to know exactly the probability of Tatum making 4 three-pointers tonight, it would be 17.3%. Now, that number is also going to be right here in that column because we could just look at exactly what the probability is of each one of these happening. The probability that he makes exactly 2 is 21.6%, 22.4%, he makes exactly 3, so on and so forth. But I do have it down here in a formula, so this way we can compare it easily to what the book has. Now, let's assume that there was a prop out there for Tatum to hit exactly 4 three-pointers tonight, and the book was paying plus 350. Well, we would look at what the book is expecting on probability of 22.2%. Our probability is 17.3%. Again, not a good bet. Now let's assume we found this same bet at plus 600 somewhere. Well, in that case, this is a great bet. We've got a really nice edge here of 21.3%. So we would go ahead and want to fire at a bet like this, even though it's still unlikely, and it's just as unlikely no matter what the book is offering us. In this instance, of course, we do want to make a bet because over time, if our projections are accurate, we're going to get value. I would urge you to go watch the video on value, and I'll link to that below so that you can understand exactly when we want to make these value bets. Now, also, the probability of exactly is also a push. When there's an instance of a three-way line is just what it sounds like. There are three possibilities. So if this bet was, let's say the prop was 3, and you could bet a push. So there might be three possibilities here. We've got the possibility it goes under 3, over 3, or hits 3 exactly. And the only way you could have a three-way line is if the sports book is offering tie as a bet. This happens a lot in golf matchups, in soccer, events where ties are highly likely. Sometimes you can get this in the combat sports, boxing, MMA, where you can bet a draw as well. But in an event where there's a likelihood of a tie, just like a bet like this, some books will offer that type of a bet. So if you run across a prop or a soccer match where tie is a possibility, this is how you would handle it, exactly the same way that you would for probability of an exact hit on an exact number. So if we look at this instance and we change the prop to 3, now there are 3 possible outcomes. The probability that this goes under is still 40.1%. That hasn't changed because we moved the prop from 2.5 to 3. So still all the same numbers that would have won at 2.5 are going to win at 3. Where things change is now the probability on the over, because we've taken 3 out of the equation. So 3 is no longer a winning bet in this prop. So the probability that this goes over is now only 37.5%. And then the probability of exactly 3, which is not a push, it would be a bet unto itself, is 22.4%. Now you look on the bottom here, our fair line is going to still be plus 149 on the under. A fair line would be 167 on the over and 347 on exactly 3. So let's say we change these numbers and we're still getting offered plus 138 on the under, and we're getting offered plus 190 on the over, and plus 300 on a push. You see now that the under probability is 40.1%. The book has it at 42%. No edge there. But now when we look at the over, we project it at 37.5%. The book is projecting at 34.5%. Therefore, we do have an edge, and this is a bet that we would likely want to fire at because we're getting paid plus 190 on something we believe to be plus 167. And then, of course, the probability of this being a tie is 22.4%. The book thinks it's 25%. We do not have an edge there. We don't want to play it. So you'll see these a lot, especially when I post soccer bets. This is how I do it. It gets a little bit more complicated, and in a future video, I'll go over soccer and baseball and how you could use the Poisson to figure out exactly what those probabilities are. But this is a really useful tool and a useful formula to figure out probabilities on props. As you can see, it's important to know what the projections are, but that is just part of the equation. Then we need to figure out exactly what the probability is of each one of these outcomes happening so that we can find the value and see, is the sportsbook off on their calculation and what they're willing to give us in juice. You're gonna probably wanna watch this video a few times maybe to get the hang of it. Also, you'll wanna watch the videos on expected value, on money management, on calculating the money line. All of those videos are in the educational playlist, and I'm going to link to them below so that you have a good base of knowledge, and then you could rewatch this video and hopefully learn. Now, if you don't want to make the spreadsheet yourself, leave a comment below and I'll let you know where to get in touch with me, and I will send you a copy of the exact spreadsheet you saw on this video. Guys, don't forget, hit the like and subscribe. Also, check out the Sports Bet Army. The link is below. And sign up now for the Sharp app. Be the first to know once the app hits the App Store so that you can download it, and you'll get tools just like this one built into the app so that you know where the value is on props, on games, on totals, on everything. Until the next video, good luck, and let's make some money.